I want you to picture a scene, and I really want you to put yourself there.
Okay.
So it is 3:00 a.m. You are sitting in a quiet, dimly lit hospital ward. You're on the overnight shift,
Right.
and the daytime chaos, the endless paging, the rushing gurneys, shift change meetings, that's all finally settled down.
Yeah, the building is mostly asleep.
Exactly. The only sound you can hear is the steady, rhythmic beeping of the heart monitors echoing down the hall.
Just that low hum.
Yeah, that fluorescent light overhead hum. It's the absolute definition of tranquil. But then you glance over at the central nurses station,
Uh-huh.
and on a nearby computer terminal, just a standard desktop monitor that usually displays the patient's census, something strange happens.
Something small at first.
Right. A file folder on the desktop flickers, the name of a patient record file blinks, and suddenly the extension at the very end of the file name changes.
It just shifts.
It goes from a standard PDF or a document format, and it now says .locked.
Just one file. It's almost easy to miss if you aren't staring right at the screen.
Exactly. So easy to miss. But then, right in front of your eyes, another file blinks, .locked.
And another one.
And another, .locked, dozens of them, then hundreds, just cascading down the screen in a blur of renaming.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
You reach for the mouse to see what's happening, but the cursor is frozen. You try hitting escape on the keyboard, nothing.
You're totally locked out.
A silent, entirely invisible intruder is currently moving through the wires in the walls, and they are locking down the entire building, room by room, server by server.
It is basically the modern equivalent of a ghost story,
Yeah.
except it is entirely real.
Completely real.
And the ghost in this scenario is an incredibly sophisticated algorithm executing millions of commands a second.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are opening up a dossier that is equal parts fascinating and, frankly, absolutely terrifying.
It really is.
We are diving into part one of what we're calling the digital kidnapping frontier.
I like that title.
Thanks. Our mission for this deep dive is to dissect the exact anatomy of modern ransomware. We're going to look specifically at how these digital hostage situations work.
The mechanics of it.
Right, the incredibly advanced mathematics operating beneath the surface, and most importantly, why these attackers have completely shifted their crosshairs.
Yeah. The targets have changed.
They aren't just going after big banks or retail chains anymore. They're going after the most vulnerable, high-stakes targets imaginable.
And we should establish right up front, if you hear the word ransomware, and your brain immediately conjures up a dry, technical manual full of impenetrable IT jargon brand.
Or like a teenager in a hoodie guessing passwords.
Right, exactly. If that's your image, you need to erase that entirely.
Throw it away completely. This isn't a tech support issue, and it's not a glitch.
Not at all.
This is a digital true crime story. It is a calculated, cold-blooded extortion plot where the weapon of choice is mathematics.
Yes.
The hostage is human life, and the stakes quite literally could not be higher. We're going to walk you through the entire life cycle of the crime scene, the mechanics of the weapon, the dark web economy driving the motive, and the terrifying real-world fallout when the digital realm bleeds into the physical one.
You know, the timeline of these events is what always strikes me first.
The timing is wild, yeah.
To truly understand how a massive, multi-million-dollar medical facility, a place that's designed from the ground up to be a fortress of healing and stability.
A sanctuary, almost.
Right, a sanctuary.
Right.
To understand how that can be brought completely to its knees by sunrise, we first have to examine the anatomy of the crime scene itself.
Okay, lay it out for us.
We have to look at how and when the perpetrator actually chooses to strike.
Which brings us to the midnight ambush. And this is such a crucial piece of the puzzle.
It really is the starting point.
The attack we just described in the intro, the files cascading and changing to .locked, it almost never happens at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon.
No.
It happens at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, or 11:00 p.m. on Thanksgiving Eve.
There is a deeply psychological and honestly highly tactical reason for this precise timing.
Because they want everyone asleep.
Exactly. From a purely tactical standpoint, the ransomware operators, who, by the way, might be operating from an entirely different time zone, perhaps out of Eastern Europe or Russia,
All right.
they know that an organization's human defenses are at their absolute weakest in the middle of the night, on a weekend, or a holiday.
You just have a skeleton crew on duty.
Exactly. The primary IT staff, the senior cybersecurity engineers, the network architects, they are asleep in their beds.
They aren't sitting in a command center staring at the network traffic monitors waiting for an anomaly.
Precisely. If a suspicious blip occurs at noon on a Wednesday, a security operations center might have 20 analysts who can immediately jump on it.
They can isolate the machine.
Right, they isolate it and quarantine the threat. But if it happens at 3:15 a.m. on a Sunday, the Tier 1 IT support tech on the night shift might be physically away from their desk.
They could be dealing with a paper jam and a fourth-floor printer.
Exactly. And by the time that technician gets back to the basement, sits down, and realizes the network traffic is spiking erratically.
It's too late.
Way too late. The malicious payload has already been executing for an hour. The catastrophic damage is already done.
And then there is the psychological element of this ambush, the maximum confusion by dawn.
Well, the psychological impact is massive.
I want you to imagine being the hospital administrator or the chief medical officer who gets that frantic phone call at 6:00 a.m.
Waking up to a nightmare.
You drive into work, the sun is just coming up, you haven't even had coffee, and you walk into a facility in absolute panic.
The pure chaos.
Every single computer screen in the building, from the reception desk to the surgical suites to the pharmacy dispensing stations, is suddenly displaying the exact same terrifying image.
The ransom note.
The ransom note. It's usually this stark, plain text document or sometimes a black and red graphical screen.
Very dramatic.
And it always has a ticking clock. 72 hours. That is the standard high-pressure window.
Yep, 72 hours.
72 hours to log onto a Tor browser, communicate with the attackers, and pay millions of dollars in Bitcoin, or the decryption key is deleted and the data is destroyed forever.
What is truly fascinating here, and by fascinating I mean structurally terrifying, is how the architecture of our modern workplaces actually facilitates this rapid total takeover.
The actual layout of the network.
Yes. To understand how every single screen gets that ransom note so quickly, we have to talk about network topology.
Okay.
We have to talk about a concept called microsegmentation, or really the fatal absence of it in modern healthcare environments.
Right. The sources talk a lot about the lack of microsegmentation here.
It's a huge issue.
My understanding is that this is basically a structural failure. We built these modern corporate and medical networks to be entirely flat to make data sharing easier.
Exactly. Convenience over security.
But in doing so, we essentially removed all the internal blast doors. Is that why the spread of the infection is so instantaneous?
That is exactly it. Think of a secure network like a military submarine.
Okay, a submarine.
If a submarine hits an underwater hazard and breaches the outer hull, the ocean water rushes into that specific compartment.
Right, that compartment floods.
But a submarine is designed with heavy steel, watertight blast doors between every single compartment.
So it doesn't sink.
Exactly. If compartment A floods, you slam the blast door shut. Compartment A is ruined, maybe you lose the equipment in there, but the rest of the submarine stays perfectly dry and the ship survives.
Makes total sense.
That is microsegmentation in a digital sense. It means building digital firewalls that strictly separate the accounting department from the human resources department.
And separate HR from the emergency room systems.
Right, and separate the ER from the MRI machines.
So if a hacker manages to compromise a computer in accounting, they are physically and digitally trapped in accounting.
They're stuck.
They can't see the rest of the ship.
Precisely. In older legacy networks or in highly secure environments like defense contractors, that is how it works. An infected computer is an isolated incident.
But not in hospitals.
No. Over the last 2 decades, especially in healthcare, organizations prioritize convenience, speed, and seamless data sharing over robust security.
Well, they had to, right?
Yeah, they really did. The government mandated the adoption of electronic health records. Doctors needed to pull massive imaging files from anywhere in the hospital on an iPad.
Right. The billing department needed to talk directly to the pharmacy's inventory system to track medications.
Exactly. Hospital administration needed a bird's eye view of everything. So to make that vast ocean of data flow faster and easier, they systematically opened all the doors.
They removed the digital blast doors.
They built an open concept submarine.
Which, even to a layperson, sounds like a catastrophic idea for a submarine.
It is a catastrophic idea. Because modern healthcare networks are largely flat, lacking these internal segmented blast doors, when the ransomware gets a foothold in just one low-level workstation.
Like a receptionist clicking a phishing email.
Exactly. Or maybe a vendor connects an infected laptop to the guest's Wi-Fi. The virus doesn't stay contained. It moves laterally.
It just spreads everywhere.
It scans the network, finds the pathways, and spreads unimpeded from the lobby up to the main domain controllers, over to the backup storage drives, and down to the executive suites, often in a matter of minutes.
Okay, I have to jump in here and push back a little bit.
Sure.
Because I know you listening are thinking this, and frankly, I'm thinking it too.
What's up?
Let's say that night shift IT tech isn't fixing a printer. Let's say he is sitting right at his desk.
Okay, he's at his desk.
He's looking at his dashboard at 3:15 a.m. Suddenly, he sees an alert. CPU usage on the main server is spiking to 100%, and he physically watches a file name change to .locked.
Right.
Why can't he just run into the server room and physically pull the plug out of the wall?
The pull the plug theory.
Yeah. Yank the Ethernet cable, cut the power, and stop the spread cold. And beyond that, surely there are automated tripwires.
You would think so.
If a script starts encrypting 1,000 files a second, shouldn't a basic security software flag that massive unnatural spike in activity and shut off the network port automatically?
It's a very logical question. The yank the cord protocol is a desperate measure that some IT professionals actually try to execute in the heat of the moment.
Do they?
Yeah, but there are a few massive hurdles here. First, let's address the automated tripwires. You're talking about endpoint detection and response software, or EDR.
Okay, EDR.
Modern ransomware gangs know exactly how EDR works. They don't just brute force their way in and start making a ton of noise.
They're stealthy.
They use a technique called living off the land.
Living off the land, meaning they use what's already there.
Exactly. Instead of bringing in a loud, recognizable piece of malware that the antivirus would immediately flag, they compromise the system and then use the hospital's own legitimate administrative tools to move around.
Wait, really?
Yeah. They use tools like PowerShell or Windows management instrumentation. These are the exact same tools your IT guy uses every day to manage the network.
Oh, wow.
So to the automated security software, it doesn't look like an attack. It just looks like the IT department doing its normal administrative job at 3:40 a.m.
That is brilliant and terrifying.
It is.
So the alarms don't even go off because the system thinks it's an inside job, or rather, a legitimate process.
Exactly.
But what about the encryption speed? If thousands of files are changing per second, that has to trigger a threshold, right?
It used to, but again, the attackers adapted. Modern ransomware often employs intermittent encryption.
Intermittent?
Yeah, they don't encrypt the entire file from start to finish. They might only encrypt every 16 bytes of a file.
Oh, I see.
It is enough to completely corrupt the file and make it unreadable to the hospital, but it requires a fraction of the processing power.
Sneaky.
Very. It keeps the CPU usage low enough to fly completely under the radar of those automated tripwires. And because they are only encrypting fragments of the files, the execution speed is blindingly fast.
So by the time human eyes actually process that an anomaly is occurring, it's too late.
Way too late. The wildfire moves exponentially faster than human hands can unplug cords.
That makes sense.
By the time your brain registers the alert, processes the danger, makes the executive decision to pull the plug, which, by the way, is a massive decision that will take the hospital offline anyway.
Right, you're shutting down the hospital.
Exactly. And your legs carry you into the freezing cold server room to find the right rack.
It's over.
The entire Active Directory has been compromised, and the encryption script has been pushed to every endpoint.
Unbelievable.
Furthermore, pulling the plug abruptly on massive, complex database servers while they are writing data can cause catastrophic, unrecoverable data corruption all on its own.
Oh, so you could ruin it yourself.
Yes, you might end up permanently destroying the very patient data you are trying to save, even if you eventually pay the ransom.
Wow. So you were entirely paralyzed.
Completely.
The attacker strikes in the dark. They exploit the open concept floor plan of the unsegmented network. They use your own IT tools against you to stay hidden. And their automation ensures that by the time you actually smell the smoke, the entire building is already reduced to ash.
That is the perfect summary.
So we know how they get in, and we know how they move laterally. But here is where we need to dig into the actual mechanics of the hostage situation,
The fun part.
if you can call it that. We need to look at the weapon they are holding. We need to examine exactly how they lock the doors behind them once they've spread through the network.
Yes. We need to step into the digital forensics lab and talk about the murder weapon itself. Asymmetric encryption.
Asymmetric encryption.
And this is where the sophistication of these cartels really shines through.
And for anyone listening, please don't let the phrase asymmetric encryption make your eyes glaze over.
Here with us.
We are going to break this down because this isn't just a tech concept. This is some of the most diabolical, unbreakable mathematics ever applied to human conflict.
It truly is. Now, I won't bore you with a basic definition of encryption.
Right.
Everyone listening knows that encryption is essentially scrambling data so it's unreadable unless you have a key to unscramble it. We rely on it constantly. When you log into your bank or send a secure message on WhatsApp, that's encryption acting as a protective shield.
Keeping the bad guys out.
Exactly. Ransomware takes that fundamental building block of digital trust and weaponizes it against the user.
It turns the shield into a sword.
That's a great way to put it. But to understand why ransomware is so devastating, we have to contrast how the keys work.
Oh, with the keys.
In traditional old-school encryption, which we call symmetric encryption, you use the exact same key to lock the data and to unlock the data.
Okay, symmetric. Same key.
Think of it like the physical key to your front door. You use the key to throw the deadbolt when you leave for work, and you use that exact same key to unlock it when you come home.
It's one key that does both jobs, which means if I lose that key or if someone copies it, they have total access.
Right. And in a digital sense, if a hacker uses symmetric encryption on your network, they have to leave a copy of that key embedded somewhere in the software so it knows how to reverse the process later.
Oh, I see.
And if they leave the key in the software, a smart cybersecurity response team can usually reverse engineer the malware, find the hidden key, and unlock the data for free.
So symmetric encryption leaves a vulnerability for the attacker.
Exactly. That is why modern ransomware evolved to use asymmetric encryption.
Asymmetric.
Yes, asymmetric encryption uses two different keys, a mathematically linked pair. One is called the public key, and the other is the private key.
And this brings us to the padlock analogy, which I think is a brilliant way to visualize this.
It's the best way to understand it.
But I want to take it a step further to really highlight the dread. Let's use the analogy of a titanium safe.
I like this.
Imagine an intruder breaks into your house in the middle of the night. But instead of stealing your TV and your laptops, they go into your office and they gather all of your family's irreplaceable belongings.
Right. The stuff you can't replace.
Your grandmother's heirloom jewelry, your physical photo albums, the deed to your house, your passports. They take all of it and they place it into a massive, heavy, impenetrable titanium safe right in the middle of your living room.
That is the perfect setup. The safe represents the encryption algorithm.
Now, here is where the asymmetric part comes in. The intruder leaves the safe door wide open. Attached to the door is a heavy padlock. This padlock is the public key.
The public key, yes.
The intruder can manufacture millions of these padlocks. They can leave them anywhere. Anyone can take this padlock, loop it through the heavy hasp of the safe, and physically snap it shut.
Very easily.
It is incredibly easy to lock. Snap. Your belongings are now secured inside the safe.
But, and here's the mathematical cruelty of it, the padlock they snapped shut does not have a keyhole for the person who locked it.
No keyhole.
The act of locking it is a one-way street. The only thing in existence that can open that specific padlock once it is snapped shut is the corresponding private key.
So the hackers take their digital padlock, they drop it onto your hospital's computer network, and the automated script snaps it shut over all of your patient records, your x-rays, your employee payroll databases.
Everything.
Snap, snap, snap. Millions of files locked in seconds.
And here is the twist that makes the extortion completely inescapable. The private decryption key. The only key in the universe that can open those specific padlocks never touches the victim's network.
Wait, really? Not even for a millisecond?
Not even for a millisecond.
It's never written to the hard drive? It's not hiding in the registry?
Never. When the hacker's infrastructure originally generates the mathematical padlock and the key pair, they keep the private key entirely off-site on their own secret command and control servers.
So they just hoard it?
Yeah, usually hidden deep on the dark web, completely insulated from the victim, from the incident response teams, and from international law enforcement.
So returning to our living room analogy, the intruder snaps the padlock on the titanium safe, and then they take the only copy of the key and they fly to an underground bunker in a non-extradition country.
Basically, yes.
You wake up the next morning, you walk into your living room, and your stuff is still there. You can physically see the titanium safe taking up space.
It's right there in front of you.
On a hospital network, you can see the gigabytes of data taking up space on your hard drives. You know exactly where your files are, but you cannot touch them. They belong to the math now.
And we really need to emphasize the finality of this math, because it's not magic. It's just prime number factorization at an unimaginably massive scale.
Right.
This isn't the movies. There's no hacker in a basement working for the NSA who can just furiously type on a keyboard, say, "I'm in," and cracks the mainframe to bypass the lock.
You can't just lockpick a titanium safe, and you can't guess the password.
You cannot lockpick math. Let's explain why. The algorithms used by modern ransomware gangs, like RSA or elliptic curve cryptography, they rely on one-way mathematical functions.
One-way functions.
Think about basic multiplication. If I ask you to multiply 7 by 13, you can easily tell me it's 91.
Sure.
That's easy to compute in one direction. But if I give you the number 91 and ask you to figure out which two prime numbers multiply together to create it, it takes your brain a little longer to reverse engineer it.
Okay, yeah, 91 is a small number, but what if the number is hundreds of digits long?
Exactly. When these algorithms generate the keys, they multiply two massive, randomly generated prime numbers together. Creating the public padlock is easy.
Because it's just multiplying.
Right. But to figure out the private key, to reverse engineer the math, you have to figure out what those two original prime numbers were.
And that's hard.
It's near impossible. If you tried to use the world's most powerful state-of-the-art supercomputers to guess the private key through trial and error, what we call brute forcing, the prime factorization,
How long would it take?
it wouldn't take days or
Yeah.
weeks. It would take billions of years, longer than the current age of the physical universe.
That is deeply unsettling. It puts the situation into a completely different perspective.
It really does.
We aren't dealing with a software bug. We are dealing with an unbreakable physical law of mathematics applied to data.
It is meant to be deeply unsettling. The math is functionally flawless. It is a perfect, impenetrable cage.
Wow.
Without that specific, unique private key sitting on the hacker's secret server, the data is just gone. It is random, garbled noise.
So there's no hope without paying.
That is the true weight of the dread that washes over a chief information officer when they see that ransom note. They are staring down a mathematical impossibility.
So let's synthesize this. We have an attacker who strikes in the dead of night, slipping silently through an open concept network with no internal blast doors,
Right.
using the hospital's own administrative tools to stay hidden. And they are wielding a weapon, this asymmetric encryption based on prime factorization, that is mathematically impossible to break.
The ultimate unbreakable padlock.
Which brings us to a really dark pivot point in our discussion. If a highly organized criminal syndicate possesses an unbreakable weapon that can instantaneously and permanently freeze an entire organization,
Who do they use it against?
right, who is the most desperate, lucrative victim to use it against?
This brings us to the psychology of the victim profile, and specifically the stark shift over the last few years toward targeting healthcare systems and hospitals.
Because if we rewind the clock 5 or 10 years, ransomware was mostly viewed as a corporate problem.
Yeah, business stuff.
Hackers were going after manufacturing clans, retail chains, local city governments, maybe a regional law firm. But now it seems like every other week a major hospital system is making headlines.
Exactly. And to understand this shift, we have to look at the ultimate leverage point in any extortion or hostage scenario. Time.
Time is leverage.
Time is everything. Let's run a thought experiment. Let's say a major ransomware group targets a massive global logistics and shipping company.
Okay, a shipping company.
They lock up all the corporate servers, the inventory databases, the shipping manifests. It is a disaster, absolutely. Millions of dollars are bleeding out every single day.
Terrible for business.
But fundamentally, the company can endure the pain. They can pause shipments. They can fall back on manual spreadsheets or whiteboards in the warehouses.
They can put their PR teams in front of the news cameras to apologize to shareholders.
Right. Most importantly, they can spend weeks letting their high-priced lawyers, cyber insurance providers, and specialized hostage negotiators haggle over the ransom amount with the hackers.
They have time.
They have the luxury of dragging out the clock to get a better deal or wait for their backups to be restored.
They can wait. It hurts the bottom line, the stock price takes a hit, but nobody actually dies if a container ship full of sneakers is 3 weeks late arriving in port.
Precisely. But a hospital cannot wait. A
No.
hospital does not have weeks. They do not have days. In many critical care scenarios, they do not have hours.
Seconds matter.
When hospital computer networks lock up, modern medicine grinds to an absolute terrifying halt. Let's look at the specific vulnerabilities.
Tell us.
It's not just that the doctors can't check their emails. The intensive care units lose access to real-time vital patient telemetry.
So they can't monitor heart rates and oxygen.
Right. Diagnostic imaging systems, what they call PACS, picture archiving and communication systems, they go down. That means MRI machines and CT scanners, which run on these connected networks, become massive, multi-million-dollar paperweights.
Useless.
The automated medication dispensing cabinets, like Pyxis machines on the ward floors, lock up because they can't authenticate the electronic prescriptions.
The entire nervous system of the building is severed, and lives are immediately, instantly placed in acute danger.
Yes. The ransomware cartels realized something very profound and very dark. When you attack a corporation, you are extorting their profit margin. You are threatening their wallet.
Right.
But when you attack a hospital, you are extorting human life. You are threatening their existence.
That's horrifying.
And because a hospital has a sacred, fundamental, legal, and moral duty of care to its patients, the pressure to restore those systems is astronomical.
You have to pay.
It completely removes the hospital's ability to negotiate slowly. It forces an incredibly fast payout because every hour of downtime increases the statistical probability of patient mortality.
I really want to highlight the dark psychology of this choice because it is truly chilling.
It's calculated.
The hackers are entirely aware of the medical ethics involved. They know doctors take the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm. This isn't just a standard business extortion plot. This is an extortion plot where the gun is pointed squarely at completely innocent patients on life support or a trauma victim bleeding out in the ER.
They know exactly what they're doing.
The hackers are quite literally banking on the empathy and the moral obligation of the medical staff. They know the hospital administrators will look at the ICU, look at the ticking 72-hour clock on the ransom note, realize they can't break the asymmetric math and say, we have no choice, lives are at stake, pay the Bitcoin.
It is the weaponization of morality. They are using the hospital's own ethics, their own dedication to saving lives, against them. It is a ruthlessly calculated business decision.
It is pure evil. There's really no other way to frame it when you are monetizing human suffering.
Yeah?
But here's where the story takes another twist and it gets even more complicated. Because the extortion we've been discussing, the ransom demand to hand over the private key to unlock the files, that is actually only half of their business model.
Right. It's what the industry calls double extortion. We have to talk about what the attackers do before they drop the padlocks and lock the doors.
Which brings us to the loot, the dark web economics.
Yes, the data.
Before the hackers deploy the asymmetric encryption and trigger all the alarms, they quietly, methodically engage in data exfiltration. They steal copies of absolutely everything.
Everything they can get their hands on.
They steal the contents of the safe before they lock the safe. And what happens to that stolen data is a massive, highly structured economy in and of itself.
To understand the sheer value of this exfiltrated data, we need to look at the black market pricing on the dark web.
Okay, let's talk numbers.
And we need to dispel another myth here. The dark web isn't just a chaotic, shadowy message board of lone wolf hackers.
Like you see in movies.
Right. It is a structured, highly organized economy that operates very much like Amazon or eBay, complete with user reviews, escrow services to prevent scams between criminals, and customer support.
Customer support for criminals.
Yes, seriously.
Yeah.
And it operates strictly on supply and demand. If an initial access broker, which is a specialized hacker whose only job is to break in and then sell that access to a ransomware gang,
Okay.
if they steal a batch of credit card numbers, how much do you think a single active stolen credit card sells for on these dark web marketplaces today?
I mean, considering the credit limit on a gold or platinum card could be $10,000 or $20,000, I would guess maybe a few $100 for a clean card number.
$5.
Wait, very
Sometimes as low as $2 if you buy them in bulk.
$5. Wow, that is shockingly low.
A mere $5. The market is absolutely flooded with stolen credit cards from retail breaches.
Supply is too high.
Exactly. But contrast that with a complete medical record, a comprehensive electronic health record stolen during a hospital breach. That single medical record can command up to $1,000 on the dark web.
$1,000 for one patient file. Why?
Yeah.
Why is my medical chart worth 200 times more than my actual active credit card?
Because of what a medical record actually represents. It is what cybersecurity experts refer to as digital DNA.
Digital DNA.
A credit card is just temporary financial access. A medical record is your comprehensive foundational identity. Let's look at what's in there.
What are they getting?
It contains your social security number, your date of birth, your current and previous home addresses, your employment history, your emergency contacts, your health insurance group IDs.
That's a lot.
And beyond the demographics, it contains your incredibly intimate, comprehensive medical history. Physical diagnoses, lists of daily prescriptions, psychiatric and mental health evaluations, histories of addiction or treatment.
Okay, I want everyone listening to think about their wallet right now. Think about what happens if you drop your credit card on the sidewalk, or if your number gets skimmed at a sketchy gas station.
Right, it's an annoyance.
You log onto your banking app, or you call the 1-800 number on the back of the card, you talk to a rep and you say, my card is compromised, cancel it.
Easy.
They press a button, the old card is instantly dead, and they overnight mail you a new piece of plastic with a new 16-digit number. It's a hassle to update your Netflix subscription, but the problem is entirely solved within 24 hours.
Exactly. The financial asset is highly fluid and easily replaceable.
So my question for you as we look at this dark web economy is this. How exactly do you cancel your medical history?
You don't.
How do you call up a bank and cancel your social security number and get a new one issued? How do you cancel the fact that you had a specific surgery 3 years ago or that you take a specific medication?
You can't. That is the chilling reality of digital DNA. You absolutely cannot. Your medical history, your core identity data, it is fundamentally unchangeable.
You're stuck with it.
You cannot reissue a life. And that permanence is precisely why it is so wildly lucrative for the criminals.
Because the value of the stolen data never expires. It never deprecates.
Never. A stolen credit card might be valid for 48 hours before the bank's automated fraud detection algorithms catch an anomaly and shut it down.
Right.
That's exactly why it's only worth $5. It's a rapidly depreciating asset with a tiny window of utility. But a stolen medical record.
It's forever.
A criminal buyer can sit on that information for years. They can use your identity to open fraudulent bank accounts, secure auto loans, file false tax returns to steal your refund.
Oh, man.
Or, and this is incredibly common, they can use your identity to submit massive fraudulent medical billing claims to Medicare or private insurance using your name. And they can do it a decade from now.
And beyond identity theft, there's also the direct blackmail aspect, isn't there? Because medical records are, by definition, deeply personal and potentially compromising.
Yes, this is the darkest edge of the double extortion tactic. If a hospital refuses to pay the ransom, or if they manage to restore from backups, the hackers pivot.
They go after the individual?
They go through the stolen data, find high-profile patients, a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, a local politician, a celebrity, or even just a private citizen with a sensitive history, and they contact them directly.
That's so twisted.
They send an email saying, we have your psychiatric evaluations, we have the records of your addiction treatment, we have your STD test results, pay us $50,000 directly in cryptocurrency, or we publish this entirely uncensored on the open internet for your employer and your family to see.
The leverage is crazy.
The leverage here is infinite because the data cannot be changed and the social stigma cannot be undone.
So the ransomware gangs have built a completely diversified revenue stream. They're getting paid by the hospital to unlock the encrypted files. They're getting paid on the dark web marketplaces by selling the copies of the data they stole to other identity thieves. And they are getting paid by individually extorting patients with the threat of public exposure. It is a hydra. It is a multi-headed monster of profit laundered through cryptocurrency tumbling services to make it entirely untraceable.
Which is exactly why the attacks are increasing exponentially in frequency and severity.
It's too profitable.
To make this abstract systemic threat truly concrete, we need to move from theory to a real-world crime scene. We need to look at what happens when this entire process, the infiltration, the silent theft, and the final chaotic encryption, plays out in reality.
Let's do it. So we know they are stealing these unchangeable medical identities to sell on the dark web, but stealing 1.8 million records isn't something you do in a 5-minute smash and grab.
No, not at all.
It takes time to move that much data without tripping alarms. And that brings us to one of the most unsettling parts of this entire operation, the patience of the attackers. Let's look at the New York City health system case study.
Yes. When we talked earlier about the 3:00 a.m. midnight ambush, we were talking specifically about the final execution, the moment the encryption triggers and the screens lock.
Right.
But the New York City health system breach teaches us a terrifying lesson about the precursor to that ambush. It teaches us about a metric called dwell time.
Dwell time.
Dwell time is the amount of time an attacker is secretly inside your network, holding the keys to the castle before they finally announce themselves with the ransom note.
Oh, that makes my skin crawl.
In the NYC health system breach, the hackers didn't just break the window, grab whatever data was on the closest desk, and drop the padlocks. They exhibited incredible, chilling patience.
How long were they in there?
They compromised the network using compromised credentials, and then they just hid inside it, silently observing, mapping the digital floor plan, finding exactly where the most valuable databases were stored,
Just stalking the network.
locating the backup servers so they could intentionally corrupt the backups before launching the main attack. And they did this for 3 full months.
3 months? 90 days? just living inside the hospital's computer systems?
Completely undetected. And the reason they weren't detected goes back to what we discussed earlier, living off the land.
Right, using the administrative tools.
They weren't using noisy malware. They were using standard remote desktop protocols.
Ah,
To the security logs, it just looked like a hospital IT worker logging in remotely to do maintenance.
so no alarms.
And during those 3 months, they weren't just passively watching. They were slowly, methodically siphoning out the data. They set up hidden, encrypted tunnels to trickle the information out in small, steady streams.
So they don't trip any bandwidth alarms.
Exactly. Those alarms monitor for sudden data exfiltration. Over that entire season, they managed to steal the incredibly sensitive medical records of 1.8 million patients.
1.8 million people. That is the population of a major metropolitan city.
But here's the detail from the forensic investigation that really stopped you in your tracks. They didn't just steal the paperwork. They didn't just get the names and addresses.
What else did they get?
They stole the fingerprint scans,
Oh, man.
the biometric data. Many modern hospitals use biometric scanners for secure access. Staff logging into dispensing cabinets or patients verifying their identity for certain procedures.
Oh, my.
The attackers stole the literal digital fingerprints of the people in that system. And they did all of this silent exfiltration before they ever dropped the ransom note.
Okay, my reaction to this is just visceral psychological horror. Because if we go back to our analogies, it is akin to discovering that a stranger has been secretly living in your attic for an entire season.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Imagine finding out someone has been up there in the dark for 3 months, watching your family through the floorboards, learning your daily routine, knowing exactly when you leave the house and when you sleep.
Listening to your private conversations.
Stealing copies of your family's fingerprints, copying your diaries, taking photos of your children, and you had absolutely no idea.
It felt totally secure.
You felt perfectly safe in your home until they finally decided to climb down the stairs and make themselves known. The profound violation of that is staggering.
It is a profound violation of trust. And from a cybersecurity and regulatory standpoint, the fallout is devastating. It highlights the utter failure of traditional perimeter defenses.
So walls don't work.
Hospitals spend millions building massive digital walls to keep people out. But if an attacker finds a single crack in the wall, a single compromised password, and they get inside, the hospital often has zero internal visibility.
Like you said, no internal motion sensors.
Exactly. The alarm of the front door works, but there are no motion sensors in the hallway. And the aftermath of the NYC health breach wasn't just the ransom. It was the immense cost of the forensic investigations, the legal liability, the class action lawsuits from patients, and the massive regulatory fines for violating IPA data privacy laws.
So NYC Health shows us the terrifying reality of the invisible silent theft, the long, patient dwell time.
Yeah.
But what does the physical chaos look like when the dwell time finally ends? When they've stolen everything of value and they finally type the command to execute the script, drop the asymmetric padlocks, and trigger the encryption.
We have to look at another case.
We've talked about the theory, but let's look at the physical reality on the hospital floor.
For that, we look at our second case study. We move from the silent theft in New York to the absolute physical chaos in Mississippi.
Okay.
We are looking at the ransomware attack on the University of Mississippi Medical Center, or UMMC.
This is where we witness the real-world fallout, the strike.
The UMMC case is a textbook example of the immediate systemic collapse of modern medicine. When the hackers finally triggered the ransomware payload, the entire electronic medical record system, the central nervous system of the hospital, was completely shut down.
Just gone.
The screens across the entire campus literally went black and then displayed the ransom note.
And we take these screens completely for granted. We assume they will always be there, but modern medicine cannot function without them.
What's fascinating here, in a very grim way, is how quickly the reliance on technology becomes a fatal vulnerability. Medicine has advanced incredibly fast, but it is entirely dependent on that digital backbone.
Yeah, without computers.
When the screens go dark, doctors and nurses are suddenly forced to revert to a 19th century reality. They are plunged back in time with zero warning.
They're forced to use pen and paper.
In life or death, high-stakes situations. Imagine being an emergency room physician. A patient comes through the trauma bay doors, unconscious after a car accident.
Right.
Normally, you scan the barcode on their wristband or enter their name, and a screen immediately tells you their entire medical history. You instantly know their blood type for a transfusion.
It's all right there.
You know if they are severely allergic to penicillin or anesthesia. You know what complex cardiac medications they are currently taking, so you don't administer a drug that causes a fatal interaction.
But during the UMMC attack, you scan the wristband and nothing. You get an error message or a ransom note. You have absolutely no idea who this person is, biologically speaking.
You are flying completely blind in a scenario where seconds matter. The sources detailing the UMMC attack highlight the cascade of critical failures that followed. It wasn't just an inconvenience of having to write things down.
It was much worse.
Surgeries, complex, highly scheduled procedures, had to be abruptly canceled because the surgical teams couldn't access the pre-op imaging or the surgical plans.
Wow.
The diagnostic labs couldn't automatically process blood work or send the results back to the doctor's tablets. The pharmacy couldn't verify electronic prescriptions against patient allergies.
Everything is broken.
Everything became a fragmented manual process. Someone literally had to run a physical piece of paper containing critical lab results from the laboratory on the second floor down to the ER, hoping they handed it to the right doctor for the right patient.
And human error skyrockets in those conditions. But the ultimate terror of the UMMC case, the detail that truly bridges the gap between abstract computer code and physical human mortality, involves the emergency medical services. It involves the ambulances.
Yes, the diversion protocols.
Exactly, because the hospital's internal systems were so crippled and the staff was so overwhelmed trying to manage the patients they already had using paper charts, they could no longer safely intake new trauma patients.
They just couldn't do it.
They couldn't process them securely. So the hospital administration had to declare an internal state of emergency and enact formal diversion protocols.
It is drastic.
This meant that emergency ambulances, driving with their sirens blaring, carrying patients in critical condition, massive heart attacks, acute stroke victims, severe car crash trauma, these ambulances were literally pulling up to the ER doors and having to be turned away by the staff.
They had to be sent away, rerouted to other hospitals in other cities.
And I really want us to synthesize this because this is the absolute core of this entire deep dive. We need to spend a moment on the reality of modern triage.
Yeah, let's talk about the golden hour.
Think about the concept of the golden hour in trauma medicine. It's the critical window where medical intervention has the highest chance of saving a life.
Every minute counts.
Imagine you are sitting in the back of that ambulance with a loved one who is having a massive stroke. Every single minute that passes, millions of brain cells are dying. You finally pull up to the closest level 1 trauma center, the one place with the neurosurgeons who can save them, and the doors are functionally locked.
Closed for business.
The EMT, who is already burdened trying to keep the patient stable, has to get back on the radio, coordinate with dispatch, turn the rig around, and drive another 30 or 40 minutes to a secondary facility in the next county.
And that extra 30 minutes in transit is the difference between a full recovery, a severe permanent neurological disability, or death. The delay is fatal.
And why is that 30-minute delay happening? Why is your loved one bleeding out or suffering brain damage in the back of a moving vehicle?
Right, it's not a storm.
Not because of a natural disaster, not because of a massive traffic jam, not because the doctors are busy with a multi-car pileup.
There's none of that.
Because a hacker, sitting at a keyboard in a basement halfway across the globe, is demanding $2 million in untraceable Bitcoin to provide a mathematical key to unlock a digital padlock.
It perfectly illustrates the terrifying reality of the digital kidnapping frontier. The physical world and the digital world are no longer separate domains.
They're completely intertwined.
They are inextricably linked. A line of malicious code written in Eastern Europe, executed via an automated script, can directly cause an ambulance to divert on a highway in Mississippi, directly impacting human survival. The cyber weapon is, for all intents and purposes, a physical weapon.
It is deeply sobering. It completely reframes how we need to think about cybersecurity. It's not an IT problem, it's a patient safety problem.
Absolutely.
And it brings us to the end of part 1 of this dossier. We have covered incredible ground today.
We really have.
We started by looking at the midnight ambush, the tactical strikes when defenses are lowest, and the catastrophic spread through flat networks that completely lack microsegmentation blast doors.
Like the submarine analogy.
We went into the forensics lab to examine the unbreakable prime factorization math of asymmetric encryption, the padlock with no keyhole. We explored the chilling, calculated reasons why healthcare systems are the perfect target, prioritizing time and human life over corporate profit margins.
We uncovered the complex dark web economics, the ransomware as a service models, and the terrifying reality that your unchangeable digital DNA, your medical history, is worth 200 times more than your credit card.
$5 versus $1,000.
And finally, we saw the horrific real-world consequences. From hackers living silently in an IT network for 3 months stealing biometric fingerprints in New York, to the visceral, deadly chaos of ambulances being turned away from an ER in Mississippi.
We've seen how they lock down a hospital's external servers to hold lives for ransom today. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final, truly chilling thought to mull over on your own.
Okay, what is it?
It's the logical, terrifying next step in this technological progression. We're increasingly integrating the Internet of Things into our own biology.
Oh.
So, if hackers are currently targeting the giant metal servers in the basement of the hospital, what happens tomorrow? What happens when the digital firewalls fall around the Wi-Fi connected medical devices that are actually implanted inside patients' bodies?
You mean like pacemakers?
What happens when the ransomware targets a Bluetooth-enabled pacemaker or a smart insulin pump?
A literal digital hostage situation happening inside the human heart.
Exactly. Imagine waking up to a ransom note sent directly to an app on your phone, threatening to stop your heartbeat or dump lethal amounts of insulin into your bloodstream in 72 hours unless the Bitcoin is transferred to a dark web wallet.
That is, I don't even have words for that.
It sounds like science fiction, but it is the absolute bleeding edge of this frontier, and it is a reality we may have to face very soon.
We have to be ready.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's been intense, it's dark, but understanding the threat is the first step to building better defenses. This knowledge is your best armor. We will see you for part 2. Until then, stay safe out there in the digital frontier.
Thank you for watching Gulsa Podcast. Like, share, and subscribe. See you next video.